Your best thinking got you where you are today. If you want to change your thinking and change your life, you must be willing to follow the plan as it was laid out for you. You must be willing to take suggestions, even if you don't agree with them. Follow the treatment plan that was laid out for you. It was designed specifically for you by a professional, by your case manager, by your interventionist, by your therapist. And I am sure that you've had some input with the plan as it was laid out for you. Your family members were also involved. Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode of I Love Being Sober, sponsored by Camelback Recovery, Arizona's preferred sober living option to help AA newcomers stay sober during their first year in the program. If that's you or someone you know, then you're in the right place, because my name is Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO and founder of Camelback Recovery, here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people to stop their suffering and continue on their path to recovery. Let's get clear on one thing. We believe that a relapse or a slip is not a part of recovery. And that's exactly why this podcast is dedicated to you or any loved one you know in their first year of striving to live a clean and sober life. The purpose of this podcast is to come clean with all of the misinformation that's out there about recovery, addiction treatment, mental illness, and the strategies to stay sober in general. So if you believe you're in the right place, or if you know someone who is struggling with addiction, it's my privilege to share this podcast with you. Now, I have no idea if you and I have ever met, but what I do know is that AA saved my life. And I also know that to find long-term recovery and live happy, joyous, and free, it's not just about stopping your drinking, drugging, gambling, sexual indiscretions, or any other addiction you may have struggled with or suffered from. Because at Camelback Recovery, we believe that sobriety can and should be fun. And look, any recovery process is not easy. It is challenging, it can sometimes be annoying, and for most of us, it is often difficult to stay on the path. But here's the good news. The self-awareness you gain from listening to this podcast, especially if you are in the first year of your recovery, will help you make better choices, which will ultimately lead you to living a kick-ass sober life. Visit camelbackrecovery.com to learn more about our treatment strategies for alcoholism, drug addiction, or mental illness, and we even offer recovery coaching so that you can enjoy the freedom and happiness you've always searched for. Welcome to the 75th episode of I Love Being Sober, the show devoted to people in their first year of sobriety. If you are pressed for time, listen at 1.5 times speed, and you will still get all of the content from this episode. No need to take notes because I've paid a professional note taker to do that for you. The notes to this and other episodes are available when you look for them at ilovebeingsober.com. Please do that when you're done listening to this episode. You'll be glad you did, and that's my personal pledge to you for listening in its entirety. Now, although your first year in sobriety is central to our discussions, you and I will also explore other fascinating and important topics such as health and fitness, self-care, food and nutrition, breath work, and biohacking, just to name a few. All of these things are your gateway to living a kick-ass sober life, which is our mantra at Camelback Recovery. In this episode number 75, you'll learn about the fourth secret, which I believe is critical to avoiding a relapse. You'll discover that continuing with your recommended treatment plan, meaning you stay in therapy and you follow through with sober living in anything else that was recommended, that's key if you want to avoid a relapse, along with why it's so important if you want to avoid the slip. I'll share my experience with following a recommended treatment plan. And based upon the information you hear from this episode, you'll be able to figure out how it works for you. So lean in and listen carefully because this episode could have a significant impact on how you can make it to a year and much closer to living a kick-ass sober life. Also, this podcast is like an AA meeting in that everyone here is either clean and sober, struggling to get clean and sober, thinking about getting clean and sober, or whatever it may be, or just here to listen or here to learn. So if anything you hear or if you learn anything that resonates with you, throughout this episode, please let us know in the comments section of YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. What you share might resonate with somebody else and possibly save them from a relapse or maybe even save their life. Every review and every comment gets us that much closer to helping one more person or one more family. So don't be shy and be sure to share what resonates with you in the comments section. You must continue with your recommended treatment plan, meaning follow through with your full treatment plan, your aftercare plan. Don't leave AMA from the treatment center. Make sure that you go to PHP, IOP, you graduate, you stay in sober living, you get a recovery coach, you go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Whatever your treatment plan is, I'm just giving you some examples. Follow through with the treatment plan that was laid out for you by a professional. Dr. Gabor Mate, one of the #1 addiction doctors in the world, says, the question is why the pain, not why the addiction. You must seek professional guidance to confront the world of emotional issues that you used to avoid by drinking and doing drugs. That's why you need to continue seeing a professional. You must learn how to deal with these issues and relationships in a healthy way. You need a professional to help you do this with this step. The issues that are causing you to drink, drug, act out, overeat, gamble, etc. If you've been to an inpatient treatment, you've likely been given an aftercare plan. Make sure you follow that plan. And it takes time for your thinking to change. As I've stated multiple times, more than 90% of the people relapse in their first year. 67% of those people that make it to a year make it to 5 years. 85% of people that make it to 5 years make it to life. The goal is to get you to a year first. If you make it to a year, then you have a 67% chance of making it to 5 years. Doctors, dentists, airline pilots are required to be monitored for 5 years if they get in trouble for drug or alcohol-related issues. The success rate for that population is over 85%. And what that shows is the longer you stay connected, the longer you're held accountable, the more likely it is that you're going to make it clean and sober for life. Your best thinking got you where you are today. If you want to change your thinking and change your life, you must be willing to follow the plan as it was laid out for you. You must be willing to take suggestions even if you don't agree with them. Follow the treatment plan that was laid out for you. It was designed specifically for you by a professional, by your case manager, by your interventionist, by your therapist, and I am sure that you've had some input with the plan as it was laid out for you. Your family members were also involved. If you get involved with the 12-step fellowship or some other self-help group, follow the suggestions. Meaning, if you get involved with AA or some other 12-step program, get a sponsor, work the steps, get a home group, get a service commitment, go to 90 meetings in 90 days, get involved. You're building your foundation. I've seen many people come to one of our sober living homes and they say they're going to stay for 3 months and then they start to feel better and they start to think that they don't need to be in sober living anymore. They don't need the rules. They don't need the accountability. They don't need the curfew. They don't like the curfew. They have this thing figured out. They say, I'm good. I don't need sober living anymore. They're never going to drink again. They're never going to use again. They don't need to continue seeing their therapist. They don't need to continue with IOP for whatever reason. And it might be they don't want to spend the money. For the most part, addicts and alcoholics early on in recovery, we can just justify and rationalize anything. Alcoholics and drug addicts, we're smart. And we can rationalize anything and make anything sound good. There's so many things that happen in the first year that you will experience for the very first time while clean and sober. Your birthday, other birthdays, New Year's Eve, Christmas, new relationships, you break up from a relationship, you find a new job, you get fired from your job, you move to a new area, you have a new roommate, you don't get along with your new roommate wants to celebrate. If you're going to make a change to your plan, be sure to talk with your case manager, your interventionist, your therapist, your sponsor, your loved ones. getting all parties to agree on you making a change to your plan, I would say would be the only way to even consider it. And a lot of times I've seen people, alcoholics and drug addicts, we all think alike. So it's easy to convince somebody that's not an alcoholic or an addict in recovery because the alcoholics and the addicts, we're smart. We think the same. So if you can convince the other alcoholics and addicts that are in recovery, that are clean and sober, if you can convince those people that your idea is a good idea, you can convince your sponsor that your idea is a good idea. Not you convincing your parents who are not in the disease that your idea is a good idea. That's not a good plan. So if that makes sense, if you're going to make a change to your plan, you just want to make sure that you're thinking it through and you're talking to somebody else besides yourself, and you're convincing other people that have experience with recovery. That's the right way to go about things if you want to make a change to it. So here's a quick review about the insights you and I both rediscovered in this 75th episode of I Love Being Sober. Staying in therapy and continuing with your recommended treatment plan is key to avoiding a relapse. I went over why it's so important to stick with your plan, and I shared my experience with how I've seen people follow through with their recommended treatment plan. And I've also showed how I've seen people not follow through with their recommended treatment plan. And it almost always, 100% of the time, ends in a relapse. So based upon the information you heard from this episode, you can figure out how it works for you. And remember, these insights will only work for you if you work them. So please make sure you apply what you've learned in this episode of I Love Being Sober, because if you do, you will be on your way to living a kick-ass sober life. I think you'll agree that's exciting to think about. And speaking of reviews, before we end this episode, I want you to go to the reviews section on YouTube, Apple, or wherever you're listening to this, and type in one thing that resonated with you. Every comment counts, and what you share could resonate with someone else that is struggling and potentially save their life. You will also be asked to rate this episode. I hope I've earned 5 stars from you. So go ahead, share the one thing that resonated with you in the reviews section, wherever you're listening. It'll take just 3 minutes out of your day, but what you share could not only save you, but it could also save someone else's life. Okay, that does it this week. I'm Tim Westbrook, and I hope that our paths cross again next week for I Love Being Sober, the show devoted to people in their first year of sobriety. And do whatever it takes to join me for episode 76, because we're going to talk about secret number 5, self-care. I encourage you to invite a friend, a loved one, or a sponsee to listen to I Love Being Sober. I can't wait to connect with you then. It will be an insightful episode, so I really want you to join us with your loved one.